Why are you able to engage with dragons and elves, but you won't consider Gregor? Please consider Gregor. What do these reviewers think about their own relationships and the relationships of the other people in their lives? Incest between adopted siblings, poor bisexual rap, and general slut-shaming among high school girls. Hi, I'm Livy, and I like reading books through a leftist lens. Today, I thought it'd be fun if I went over some one-star reviews of books that I have recently rated highly. I'm not going over all the reviews for these titles. I'm only going over the ones that I think I have something interesting to say about. Apparently, there's discourse about negative book reviews. Did you know that? Some people think that negative book reviews shouldn't exist because, in their opinion, reviews should be written with the express purpose of turning a profit for the author, or they should be informative and helpful, and rent reviews are neither of those things, or they shouldn't be mean because negativity is bad and the author could see it and feel bad, or fans of that book could see it and also feel bad, among other arbitrary reasons. If you're interested in this discourse, there's a video by Reads with Rachel that goes over it in more detail. Her assessment is that reviews can be anything as long as they're honest, and I largely agree with that. I write reviews when I feel that I have something interesting to add to this conversation. I don't look up or read any reviews beforehand. I usually buy a book and read it first, and then I form my own opinions, and after that, I will look up reviews to see what people are talking about. I treat it as a sort of conversation that I want to participate in, and so if I feel that I have something interesting to add, I will write a review with those thoughts in mind. The books that we're going to be talking about today weren't given any reviews. I didn't write any reviews, I just rated them because I didn't feel that I had anything interesting to add. Fun fact, I ran a poll among my friends, and the overwhelming majority of them don't look up reviews, either before or after they've read a book. Reviews don't inform their purchases. They usually buy books because of someone's recommendation, either a friend whose opinions they value or a professor that they hold in high regard. I don't think this is representative of society at large. These are just the people that I know, because the only ones who actually look up reviews, either before or after reading a book, are the online people like me. We're starting with The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka, known colloquially as the Bug Book. I think he would have hated hearing that because Kafka was very adamant about not having a bug on the cover of this book because he wanted the readers to imagine what this monstrous vermin that Gregor Samsa wakes up as in their own heads. That's the premise of this book if you haven't heard about it. It opens with the line, "One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin." This book is so funny. One of my favorite passages is, quote, "How about if I sleep a little longer and forget all this nonsense?" What do you mean sleep a little longer, girl? You're a bug now. You can't sleep this off. Or when he's grumbling and he says, quote, "Getting up early all the time, it makes you stupid." You know what, Gregor? Can I call you Gregor? I fully 100% agree with you. This book is a classic for many reasons, right? The way it talks about alienation, all the conversations about one's humanity, what makes us who we are. This was written over 100 years ago, but the themes discussed here are still in question. It's timeless. I gave it 5 stars. If you want to read about his bugness, please leave now. Go read this book. It's very short and funny. We're gonna have to talk about spoilers now. There are 2 main complaints that I saw on the 1-star reviews that I want to talk about today. The first is the lack of an explanation as to why Gregor Samsa is a bug now. That's a key point in existentialism. The idea that the world has no meaning or purpose, that nothing makes sense. Things just happen without a reason. It's up to you to give your own life meaning. I mean, you wake up one day and you're a bug now. Well, what do you do moving forward? What does this mean for you? How does this change you as a person? Are you a person? These are the kinds of questions posed by this book. Existentialist theory believes that there's no why or how things happen to you, they just do. What matters is what you do moving forward, how this changes you, and to what degree you could live an authentic life given that something that you didn't cause and can't change happened to you. Even if you don't know going into this book that it's existentialist literature, the text is constantly asking you to engage with Gregor's humanity. I mean, he's a bug now. He doesn't speak any human languages, he eats trash, he likes crawling around on the walls and on the ceiling, but he was human once. He had a job, he paid bills, he has a family that he loves, and he still loves music and arts. The quote directly followed by his death scene is, "He thought back of his family with emotion and love." There's a scene not long before this where his sister is playing the violin to some humans who are not very interested in her music. But Gregor loves it. Loving music and arts is such a human experience. We have the line, quote, "Was he an animal if music could captivate him so?" I mean, how can we write off Gregor as just an animal when he loves his sister's music more than the other humans in the room, more than anyone in the world? Essentialist theory argues that we're all born with a set of unchangeable attributes that make us who we are. And because of that, we can't be or become anything else. By this logic, since one of Gregor's unchangeable attributes has changed, he's no longer Gregor. He's a bug now, not Gregor. Essentialists don't engage with the core premise of this book because the answer to them is simple. This isn't Gregor. This thing isn't even human. Now, existentialists would argue that it's someone's reaction and interaction with the world that informs them who they are, meaning that we're all in constant change and we're still us. By this logic, we have the question posed by this book. How human is Gregor now that his interactions with the world are through the body of a bug? He's no longer interacting with the world the way a human would. This brings us to the second complaint that the one-star reviews brought up, which is that this is a book about nothing where nothing happens. Why would you read an entire book while spending the whole time refusing to engage with the core premise? I don't really understand the point of ignoring every single question posed by this book, only to then complain that the text you just read is about nothing. I mean, you could do that with anything that you refuse to engage with. I have to imagine that the problem that these reviewers are having is getting past the fantastical element of Gregor's transformation. Ironically, they're acting like Gregor's family acts in the book. They ask the question, why should I care about this bug when this isn't even Gregor anymore? Which again is kind of the central question here. What's interesting is that I don't see the same struggle with fantasy readers. I have personally never heard any fantasy reader complain that they couldn't get into a book because imagining a world with dragons and elves is just too weird, too out of the realm of possibility. And yet we have people struggling to consider Gregor's transformation when it essentially takes the same level of disbelief. I mean, how are dragons and elves any less absurd than Gregor's transformation? As far as I understand, there doesn't necessarily need to be a reason or an explanation for these dragons or these elves to exist in these fantastical worlds, but I guess we need a reason for Gregor to one day wake up in his bed and he's a bug now. Why are you able to engage with dragons and elves, but you won't consider Gregor? Please consider Gregor! The next book I want to talk about is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this a 4-star rating for 2 reasons mainly. I really liked Ben, he was my type, and I really enjoyed the conversations about love that this book brought up. We have 3 main characters, Elsie and Ben, who were married for a little over 1 week before he tragically passed. We also have Ben's mom, Susan, who was married to her late husband for a few years before he died. And we also have an old man who Elsie knows. I can't remember his name. I don't have the book anymore. I only keep 5 stars in my bookshelf. But he was married to his late wife for several decades before she too passed. So we have these marriages of varying lengths, and the central question that this book asks is, Which one of these relationships is more valid? Which one of these people loved their partner more? Is it fair to compare Elsie's love for Ben to his mom's love for him? Elsie spends the majority of this book feeling insecure about her relationship with Ben because they only knew each other for 6 months before he died. Susan never even heard about her. She didn't know her son was married. She met Elsie after he was already dead. They actually met at the hospital. As the two of them interact, they learn things about Ben that the other didn't know. Because at the end of the day, neither one of them knew him completely. Susan knew parts of him, and Elsie knew other parts of him. Susan knew him as a son, and Elsie knew him as a husband. Ultimately, the point that this book makes is that all love is equal and valid. The blurb literally opens with, quote, "Have you heard of supernovas? They shine brighter than anything else in the sky and then fade out really quickly, a short burst of extraordinary energy. I like to think you and Ben were like that. In that short time, you had more passion than some people have in a lifetime." So equating their relationship of 6 months to the other relationships in the book that span over several years. It makes the point that Elsie loved Ben as much as his mom loved him, which a lot of the one-star reviews disagree with. They believe that because she only knew him for 6 months before he passed, that she doesn't have the right to compare what she felt for him to what his mom felt for him, or to what the other characters in this book felt for their partners of several years before they died. I'm okay with those claims, by the way. I disagree with the comments, but I think those are valid criticisms to make. I just wish these reviewers had gone one step further in their analysis and asked themselves what would have made Elsie's relationship with Ben valid to them. Is it really how long they knew each other? If so, then how many years does a couple need to be married for their relationship to be valid? What do these reviewers think about their own relationships and the relationships of the other people in their lives? Which ones are valid and which ones are not? What about abusive relationships that span over several years? Are they valid and real? I personally believe that it's very presumptuous to judge other people's relationships and agree with the book's assessment that we don't know how other people feel about anything. I mean, who am I to say that Elsie didn't know Ben as well as his mom did when she knew things that Susan didn't? The last book I want to talk about is The Thousandth Floor by Catherine McGee, which I actually have. I only keep 5-star books on my bookshelf. I also have the next installment of the series. Full disclosure, this book is problematic. I see it being compared to Gossip Girl a lot, but it's a lot more comparable to Elite, a Spanish Netflix series. Both this book and Elite are about a group of upper class and lower class teenagers interacting in flashbacks that slowly reveal what happened to the victim and who is the murderer. In Elite, we know who the victim is from like the first episode, but in The Thousandth Floor, that's another mystery. Since this book is about problematic people, at least some of its problematic content is purposeful. I and the one-star reviewers can only guess what that is. Some of this content, without getting into spoilers, consists of incest between adopted siblings, poor bisexual rap, and general slut-shaming among high school girls. There's more, but those are related to spoilers, so we're going to talk about them in a bit. As for the incest, it's not portrayed positively. The adopted siblings know that their relationship would ruin their parents' lives, so they plan to flee the country so they can be together. The high school girls treating each other poorly and slut-shaming each other is also purposeful because they're rich, spoiled, and shallow. They're not role models. They're openly antagonistic and jealous of the main cast. This is a commentary on class. None of the lower class girls are like this. They have a sense of community among them, so they treat each other kindly, but the upper class girls don't. They see each other as active threats. If you've seen Gossip Girl, Elite, Euphoria, or even Glee, you know exactly what I'm talking about. As for the bisexual rap, I do think that was accidental. There's a lot of care given by the author to portray Eris, the bisexual girl, in a positive light, but she still sleeps around, cheats on her partners, and is notoriously non-committal. Score 1 for the commenters. For me to finish talking about the complaints, we do actually need to get into spoilers. So if you like problematic teenagers, messy situationships, and a lot of drama, do yourself a favor and read this book. It's excellent. There's a passage here I want to talk to you about. It's the only part of this book that I highlighted. Cord takes Rylan to Paris. This is her dream date. She's been talking about Paris the entire book. They're watching the sunset and she says, "It's just beautiful." And in this line, "It is," Cord said, but he was looking at her. It's so corny, but I love it so much. It's so cute. This was the moment where Cord became my favorite character. The social commentary in this book is actually very good, which is what I want to talk about next. Here's a quick breakdown of the setting. This is a futuristic society where the rich have only gotten richer and the poor have only gotten poorer. A good visual indicator of everyone's social standings is their address. The main cast in this book lives in the Tower. It's this massive tower that was built in the heart of Manhattan with 1,000 floors. The base of the tower has hundreds of addresses and it narrows into a point where the penthouse is. Only one family lives in the penthouse, on the 1,000th floor. Most of the rich kids are white and most of the poor kids are POC, which in itself is not a problematic depiction because we're doing social commentary, and in New York City, Black, Hispanic, Asian, and immigrant communities are disproportionately affected by income inequality. So they would live at the bottom of this tower. The entire main cast is treated with sympathy, by the way. The poor kids and the rich kids. The villains are the mean rich girls who torment the main cast, the system itself, and some of the rich characters' parents. And then we have Leda. You know how I said that most of the rich kids are white? Well, the main cast is give or take 10 characters, 5 of which are rich, and out of these 5, 2 characters are POC. Leda, who's Black, and Cord, who's Brazilian. Leda's storyline is the most important one in the entire book. She's the only one of the rich characters who's new money, and because of that, she's ostracized. The alienation that she feels from her peers is so intense that she develops a drug problem. She spends most of the book being jealous of Avery, who was bioengineered to be perfect, meaning white skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair. Stay with me. This is part of the social commentary. Avery's parents are the richest in the entire book. They're the ones who live in the penthouse on the 1,000th floor. I fully believe that if the richest couple in Manhattan could bioengineer a child to be perfect, that child would come out looking like a Nazi's wet dream. Just think of the richest people in New York right now. Leda being jealous of Avery's whiteness is also realistic and relatable. Olay posted a video recently where she talks about the politics of beauty, which you should watch, by the way, it's very good. She mentions that Black girls from a very young age are taught that the standard of beauty is European. But she grew up with her sisters and her mom telling her that looking European isn't something to strive for. I wish we had a character like that in this book telling Leda the same thing. Or at least someone denouncing the glorification of eugenics here. The ending is where Leda's story falls into harmful stereotypes. She spends the majority of this book battling her addiction. By the end, she relapses, she's high, she's really upset, and while she's having an argument with Avery on the roof of the 1,000th floor, she accidentally pushes the rich white victim off. Did we need the one Black character to be a drug addict and also the villain of the story? Her addiction could have been used to start a conversation about drug addiction in Black households instead. We also need to talk about Horrell, a Black lower-class character who is a drug dealer. He's portrayed sympathetically in the beginning of the book. The reader understands that he only resorted to dealing because of his family's financial situation. This is the same sympathy extended to his girlfriend Rylan. She's his girlfriend in the beginning. This is important. Who doesn't want to steal from anyone, but she is forced into doing it to survive. These conversations about crime and class are actually very good. It's the moment that Rylan gets a new boyfriend, Cord, that things get out of control. If you're a romance reader, then I'm sure you've heard of the abusive ex-boyfriend trope. If the protagonist has a really nice and sweet ex, but then she gets a boyfriend, the moment she gets a boyfriend, her ex becomes really abusive out of nowhere. This happens in King of Wrath, which I've already talked about, and sadly it also happens here. Corral suddenly becomes really violent, which is bad optics for a black character who's in jail for dealing drugs. The last thing we need to talk about is the bury your gays trope. If you don't know, in the 2010s, it was pretty common for the very few gay characters that appeared in media to either get killed off or simply not have a happy ending. They're always underrepresented and then they die. This happens here. Eris, the only bisexual in this book, is the murder victim. Spoilers for the second installment, which I still haven't finished reading, but I've heard that the only lesbian in this book is also the victim of this book. So in the first one, we have a bisexual dying, and in the second one, we have a lesbian dying. It's not great. It's actually very bad. That's to say that the 1-star reviews do make a lot of good points. Still, the reason I love this book is because every aspect of each character's identity matters. It informs the way they interact with each other and the world. It's impossible to swap them around without changing the narrative completely. What annoys me is when a book has a diverse cast, but it's not about diversity. You could swap these characters around and nothing about the narrative would change. D. Fretter says something in his review of Onyx Storm that I agree with. These often white authors are applauded and rewarded for being inclusive when they're not writing about inclusivity. That's not the case here, which is why I really like this book. You're allowed to like problematic media, by the way. Ole literally just posted a video about Desperate Housewives, absolutely ripping it to shreds, because she liked watching the show and she has some comments about it. It is, at the end of the day, conservative propaganda. I also love the show. And I know it's conservative propaganda, and I loved watching her video absolutely ripping the show to shreds. It's awesome. I hope you enjoyed this video. Are there any problematic books that you like? Have you considered Gregor today? Please consider Gregor. If you take nothing away from this book, at the very least, please just consider Gregor. That's very important to me. Please like and subscribe and buy my book. I'm an author, I write books, I write about diverse characters and diverse stories. Thanks for watching. Bye.